Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Russell Dubner, U.S. CEO of Edelman, to discuss the results of the 21st annual Edelman Trust Barometer. And it shows trust was put to the test due to the pandemic. Russell, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you, Jill. Thanks for having me.
And before we get into the results, it's such a comprehensive report. Tell us about the methodology behind it.
Sure. So we've been studying trust in institutions, as you said, for over 20 years. And we look at that across 33,000 people in 28 markets. And it looks at trust in business, NGO, government, and media.
And certainly interesting results as compared to last year. The main theme in 2020 was competence and ethics. And in 2021, it's declaring information bankruptcy. Where did the bubble burst? Which segment lost the most?
Yeah, well, I'm not a bearer of good news in this segment, but I think it's really both in the leaders and in institutions. So if we ask questions of, what trust do you have, or do you believe what you're hearing from business leaders, from government leaders, religious, and from media, and what we're finding is over 60% of people believe that government leaders are intentionally misleading or lying. They believe that 50+% of people believe that the leaders in media and 49% of religious leaders can't be trusted. So that's on the leadership front. On the institution, we've seen some real drops. The biggest drops were in government, not surprisingly in some ways, in media, given the narrative that's out there. And then we've also seen a flattening of NGO. Really only business is the one who's stayed relatively buoyant.
And that's my next question. What became the most trusted institution in the U.S.?
Yeah, well, I mean, in fact, there was if you look from the spring, we did a quick pulse in the middle of COVID, and there was actually a bounce that business got and maintained better than in any of the other institutions. I think what's interesting is, while business is by far the strongest institution now in terms of the trust that it has from the American public and globally, it's interesting to see that in a bipartisan way, Trump voters and Biden voters see the CEOs of their employers as the most trusted leader. So, a little bit of a positive ray of light from what I was just sharing a moment ago.
So are businesses expected to fill the void left by government? We certainly saw that through the pandemic. That's not a secret.
Yeah, I mean, the expectations here are high. Nearly 80% of the people we polled believe that business should be speaking out on things like the response to the pandemic, both from a health perspective, from an education perspective, and that they should act, business leaders and businesses, ahead of government where needed, and not wait for business to have the permission for government to step in.
How do global audiences view U.S. government and business?
Yeah, this is a tough pill to swallow this year. For the first time, I think, in at least since 2014, we've seen business is actually distrusted, American-based U.S. business distrusted globally. So this is a 14-point drop over the last 5 years. And so we're at about 48% now. So we're lagging Germany dramatically, the UK, ahead of China, but I don't know that we're going to be particularly proud of that. And it really is seems to correspond with trust in the U.S. government, which is also distrusted, but at about only 40% trust in the U.S. government globally. So we've got a 48% for business and 40% for our government.
Wow, let's hope we see some reversal in those trends for next year's report. And the pandemic not only tested trust in institutions, but it also fueled pre-existing societal fears and highlighted global inequities. What changed in importance since last year in terms of increased urgency to address foundational problems?
Yeah, we saw really dramatic spikes in people's concerns about the equity of our health system, our education system, and fake news. Each of those were up near 50+ points, and people's concern about our ability to really reconcile the challenges.
Has political polarization reached a danger point in the U.S.?
We asked one question to see whether or not people believe that we are at that precipice. And in fact, 58% of Biden voters and 64% of Trump voters believe that we're essentially in a cold civil war because of the political rancor today.
And it's interesting, we talk about social media, we blamed everything on social media. The report showed that trust in all information services is at a record low. Did that apply to all sources of news?
Yeah, the fact that traditional media is down at a low point, historical low point right now, is, I think, of deep concern for all of us. It's down 10 points, traditional media right now. And in fact, in our research, information published by or kind of stamped by a company or your employer was the most trusted at 61%. In fact, if we go back to traditional media, Trump voters, only 18% of them trust traditional media today. So it really is a concern about how can we backstop that view that the media is biased and has an ideological agenda, which more than half of our population believes today.
Russell, I'm ending this on a positive note. I promised myself that we were going to get there. So with all the distrust in sources of media, where are the information and science literacy priorities?
Look, I just say that in both the science and literacy, people are yearning for clarity in terms of, where's good information? How do I understand and have good hygiene in the information I have? And where are the facts and the answers related to science, specifically as it relates to the vaccine? And these are places where business can play a really active role, both in their four walls and in some instances outside.
And finally, how do we emerge from information bankruptcy?
Well, this has got to be a team sport. While business is the only institution that is both trusted as competent and ethical, it can't go it alone. So yes, it can lead in action, it can lead in word, it can do it within its four walls, but it's going to have to still partner with the other institutions to take it forward. And I do think that coming out of this next phase of COVID, there's going to be both great focus, but there's a great opportunity as well.
There certainly is. And I hope when we have you on for the mid-year update and when we see you in 2022, we will have reversed those trends. Thank you so much for joining us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Jill.
Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Thanks, Russell.